Welcome back to 30 for 30. This is Coach Nash. The 30 for 30 series was just a brainchild of mine to inspire good conversation between two professionals to help grow each other and maybe help grow our listeners at the same time. My guest today is a good friend of mine, man, Joe Price. He currently has a role at UTSA, formerly at the University of Illinois, but I knew him way back when he was a high school coach at one of the best schools in the nation, North Shore High School. So, Coach Price, welcome, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Coach Nance. I appreciate it.
No problem. No problem, man. It's a pleasure for me to talk to you, man, because, first of all, I'm proud to see a man just enter and follow his dreams and make things work, man. Just, I guess if you don't mind, give all the listeners like a little bit of a background of how you got to UTSA.
Okay. Yeah. So, you know, I got to start, I played ball coming up, grew up in the Houston area, graduated from Aldine Nimitz High School after a short stint at Booker T. Washington High School. And then I went up to and played Division II ball, play receiver at Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas. After which I didn't even know if I really wanted to coach. My dad was a coach in the Houston area for over 30 years. Mom is an educator. Heck, my sister's a coach. And they were all still in education. But after working for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for a little bit and realizing, I wasn't really passionate about that that job and that experience, even though it was a great learning experience. I decided to get into the coaching profession, and I haven't looked back. I started out at the middle school level, like most coaches do, at Woodland Acres Middle School, which is in Galena Park ISD, and I'm glad for it. I mean, we weren't very good. I don't think we won a football game while I was coaching there, but I got an opportunity to really learn how to coach and how to deal with young people. Even though I think I had a great idea about it, well before I entered the arena. After being at Woodland Acres for a few years, I transitioned over to Galena Park High School, a part of Coach Ray Zepeda's staff. Ray Zepeda is the athletic director over in Cy-Fair. And from there, after about 2 or 3 years for Coach Zepeda, then I transitioned to North Shore. John Kay was my middle school coach way back in the 90s. And, when he got the job at North Shore, I reached out to him and was afforded an opportunity to join his staff. From there, of course, we had great success. In the 5 years I was there, won 2 state championships. Just missed the opportunity to be a part of the third one, but the whole time I always wanted to get to the top level in the profession. Still ambitious in this profession. And Lovie Smith afforded me the opportunity to join his staff at Illinois at the beginning of the 2019 season. We got to a bowl game for the first time since 2014 there. It was an outstanding experience, not only for me professionally, but personally too. Lovie Smith is a guy that, I often told people, 10 years ago, I was watching Lovie Smith coach the Bears in the Super Bowl versus, Peyton Manning. And, I can remember he allowed me to go out and recruit. And I was on a private jet with Lovie Smith. Like, it's easy to be starstruck and, but he really helped me. And that whole staff helped me transition into this college football world pretty smoothly. And then here in March, Coach Jeff Traylor, who I kind of knew through obviously the recruiting when he was at SMU and Texas and Arkansas, he afforded me the opportunity to come back to Texas as a director of player personnel here with his initial staff at UTSA. So it's been an awesome ride so far, and I hope it gets better as I continue, progressing in the coaching world. So.
Absolutely. I know what I've seen just from you, man, is that you stayed humble. You've been that guy, man. If I ever need something as a recruiting coordinator, as a high school coach, I can reach out to you, and you don't hesitate to hit me back and let me know, what needs to happen to make things happen. So, man, I really appreciate that. I know for a lot of coaches who are ambitious, it sometimes seems that we're looking ahead. Yeah, how do you stay focused on where you are and being where your feet are?
I'll confess that I've been guilty of that as well. And, I think a lot of coaches, if not all, kind of fight those temptations, year in and year out as opportunities present themselves. I think, the somewhere around 2015, 2016, after we won that first state championship, something in my mind kind of switched. I've always been aggressive in pursuing my goals, but the way I was pursuing trying to get to this level, I didn't think I was doing it the right way. Like I felt like I was almost begging at times to try to get the opportunity instead of kind of just working on improving my craft and making sure that the product that I displayed, whether that product be me or the things that I was presenting as a recruiting coordinator about my players and the manner in which I went about presenting, I just needed to put more effort into that. And, they always say, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, people will come get you. I agree with that to a point, but you still got to kind of tell some people what you want to do for them to know to come get you. But it helps to have good kids, and I was really willing to help those kids achieve their goals. And in that, people started to rely on me as a resource, so to speak. Maybe they weren't gonna get my kid, but they were looking for a kid, and I might know a kid down the street or whatever. And all of a sudden, people are asking me to evaluate a guy, and that's kind of how the Illinois thing kind of developed. Evaluate this guy for me, tell me what you think. And when my evaluation kind of matched up with theirs, I think that's what kind of led me to an opportunity. I guess, not looking ahead, but just being a master of your craft where you're at, you know what I mean? And then, but also still, making sure people understand where you want to be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My mom always told me closed mouths don't get fed. So you definitely have to speak up about what you want. And at the same time, man, I'm with you. It's, mastering your craft, because nobody wants you at the next level if you're not succeeding at the level that you're at right now. That's
No doubt.
just a fact. Absolutely. Now, man, I know it's been a crazy few months. I was telling my kids and my wife not too long ago, I was like, can you believe we went to spring break and we never went back? COVID is crazy.
At that time, I was just kind of transitioning into this job. And I remember, they wanted me to start on March 1st. And I drove down, me and my youngest daughter, Jordan, we drove down 14 hours, drove to Houston, hung out with my parents for a day, then drove to San Antonio with my wife, drove up. Well, she was like, I'm gonna come down on spring break. So I had to rush to try to find a place to live within, a few days, not knowing that when she came down that we were going to be stuck in the house from that point forward, So while I'm learning about, the people that I'm working with, the toughest thing is learning about them from a distance. So we're figuring it out just like everybody else in the country is figuring it out. So
Absolutely. There's could be a lot of negative to be said with the pandemic. Obviously people are sick, and some people have passed away. But one of the positives that I've picked up, actually, it's multiple positives. Number one is that I was so focused on my work that I was almost neglecting my family to a certain extent. I was so locked into it. But I was able to reconnect with wife and kids, and being in the house for 10 straight weeks together, it can do that to you. You
no doubt.
reconnect, or are you ready to butt heads with everybody? But
you find out if you like somebody when you have to sit in the house with them for 2 months.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I definitely agree.
Yes. Another thing is I've learned there's nonstop coaching clinics happening online, Zoom clinics here, Zoom clinics there. So I became more tech savvy than I've ever been, and learned a lot more ball than I've ever learned. Maybe too much. I'm trying to forget some stuff because I want to do everything now. But
right.
It's very interesting how we're able to connect. For you, what were you able to pull with taking this new role? Because if I'm correct, at Illinois is director of recruiting, correct?
Director of High School Relations.
High School Relations.
Illinois, yeah. And then here is Director of Player Personnel. I would say, while it was High School Relations there, I think I did more stuff with the recruiting than necessarily what your typical high school relations guy does in most places. I think in that role, at a lot of places, that guy is usually like a retired coach or somebody that's, a former player of the program, well respected, it maybe in that state, and all they do is reconnect with the coaches in the state. You know, that was kind of my role, but at the same time, Coach Smith wanted to continue to build relationships here in the city of Houston. And I guess, he felt like I was a person that had some deep relationships here, which I felt that to be true as well. And what was crazy about that role is typically when you're off the field, you don't get to travel and go out and recruit. Well, we had one of our assistants who was kind of down on his health, and that allowed me to be activated to be on the road and recruit. So in terms of professional growth, I know this is kind of all over the place in my answer, but in terms of professional growth, like one of the objections that I continuously heard was either how would you be in a room or what's your background in recruiting. So now I got to, I mean, that's something I can check off the list. Like you can't deny me because of that anymore. Because I mean, not only can I recruit Houston, but they sent me down to South Georgia and Atlanta. That was great. They sent me down to Tampa, Clearwater, that area. That was great. Heck, I even got to, we pursued a kid up in Canada. So I got to go to Canada to go after a guy. So, that whole experience was just awesome. But what I did learn that prepared me for this job was just the evaluation piece. Sitting in my seat at North Shore, I'm politicking for my guys, trying to figure out, trying to convince guys for my guys the best take for each program. And a lot of times I didn't compare them to guys that were, outside the city. Now I compare them to guys in the city because I see those guys most often at camps and things like that. But when you're sitting in the seat, especially like at a Power 5 place that recruits national, you're comparing them to guys everywhere. And what you saw as assets as a coach, they don't look like assets when you're comparing them to some guy down in Florida or Georgia or wherever they're at. So it just kind of gave me a broader perspective on the whole recruiting game. Here, I'm getting an opportunity to figure out how to lead a little bit more, and how to make sure that I'm organized to help the guys that are actually recruiting the guys on a day-to-day basis be more efficient in the processes. So it's all been a great experience, and ultimately, I think both of these situations kind of will help me be a better coach once I get the opportunity to coach again, just because now I got a well-rounded perspective of, what different parts of the building are having to do or what they're responsible for. So,
absolutely. That was actually leading to my next question. So I'll take it all the way back to Illinois. So leaving high school, showing up in Illinois, and finding your role. How different was that for you? Not necessarily being the hands-on coach and on the field coach, and understanding everybody's role within, because most high school programs aren't set up like college programs.
No doubt. When you think about your role in a high school, you probably can say the same about your role. I'm the recruiting coordinator. I'm the receiver coach. I'm the JV offensive coordinator. I'm teaching business. You're passing out equipment. You're doing strength and you're doing everything. You know what I mean? When you get to college, you got somebody that's their full-time job. Every single part of it is a full-time job. So, to me, that was like mind blowing. Even it's not like I didn't know, but just seeing it firsthand is like, man, y'all really got it good. All you got to do is focus in on ball, or recruiting, whatever it may be. But the biggest thing to me was that I struggled with initially was just not being in the room. You know what I mean? So Andrew Hayes Stoker, he's from the Dallas Fort Worth area. He's the receiver coach there. Man, that dude, he looked out for me up there. A lot of guys looked out for me. I mean, I feel like I'm a nice guy. I connect well with different types of people, and it was easy to connect with guys from various backgrounds. But I know Stoker had a great influence on me having the opportunity to be there. Him being a receiver coach and him knowing my love and passion for that position. I said in his meetings, 2 or 3 times a week, just to kind of get my fix. Of course, I was at every practice, hanging around his drills. And I think the evaluation, go back to the evaluation piece, him asking me about a guy and me giving him my evaluation, even though it wasn't my guy, kind of also led to him trusting me as an extra set of eyes on his position. So, you know, if I came back and said, hey, you know, Casey didn't get out of his break that well, you know, or Kyron, you know, didn't catch that ball, whatever it may be, you know, I don't think he shunned me like some coaches may do to guys that really don't, you know, don't have that group, or they may not trust, or whatever it may be. So, you know, I got my fix a little bit, and Coach Traylor, he's been great about, he's forcing me, hey, I want you in that receiver room. I want you in those position meetings, but I also want you doing your job too. Don't neglect your job. But I think, you know, it kind of goes back to, you know, what we initially talking about, just your growth and development and how you continue to progress. You know, part of getting here was telling somebody that I wanted to be here, but part of continuing to grow is telling people where I want to grow too, and hoping that the people that have hired you support and will push you toward those goals that you want to achieve. I think Coach K was awesome with that. I wouldn't be here if Razor paid it too. I wouldn't be here if those guys didn't entrust me or trust me to do some things that maybe they typically wouldn't trust guys to do. Coach K, you know, he would tell me, hey, if you see something that needs to be done, do it. And, you know, you do it how you want to do it. And then if you're doing too much, I'll let you know. So it just got to the point where, you know, I would see something, I would do it. And then, you know, then I would come to him and ask him, hey, what do you think about this? And, you know, when he say, yeah, I like that, well, then it's already done. So I just wanted to make sure, sure I was doing the right thing, whatever it may be. Yeah. But I think, though, you know, just gaining that level of trust and responsibility kind of has always fueled or helped me along the way. And it's helping me now.
No doubt. Man, and I think about the movement. You know, it's one thing. Like I'll just get my own situation. We were in DFW for 10 years, and then I say, "Honey, we're going to Houston." She said, "All right, let's go." And when it was time to go back, she said, "Okay." I said, "We're going to Dallas." She said, "Okay, let's go." You know, if anything was to come up, if I was going to, you know, Austin, San Antonio, wherever right now, she'd say, "Okay, let's go." So how instrumental is it for you to have just that family dynamic where they can support you when the moves come?
Man, I'm blessed, no lie. You know, when me and my wife were dating is when I transitioned into coaching. And I remember telling her, like, look, this is the life of a coach. You know, we could be here one day and we can be somewhere else another day. So really, if you're not really down for that, here's your out. You know what I mean? Like,
speak now.
Speak now, because this could be a crazy ride. You know, and of course, you know, sometimes when we're trying to make decisions on opportunities, if they're right, there's some deep discussion. But obviously, when she allowed me to move her all the way to Illinois and now all the way back to San Antonio, she's in it. And, you know, and if we were to have to move somewhere else, I think she gets it now, especially if it's helping us progress toward, you know, whatever the ultimate goal is. You know, she moved during her lifetime. Her parents worked for ConocoPhillips, so she moved from like Oklahoma to Colorado to Texas. I grew up, my parents still had the same house that I grew up in, so I never moved. So, you know, I'm kind of all about it just because, you know, my kids have gotten to see 3 different areas in the past year and a half that I never saw when I was a kid. But, you know, that doesn't happen if she doesn't support, you know, my goals or whatever. Luckily, she's a teacher and librarian, so that allows her some easy transitions. But what she knows is if I can get to the right spot, then she'll be on scholarship and doesn't have to go to work.
That's right. Early retirement. That's what my wife keeps pressing for me. She's an assistant principal, a high school assistant principal. And she's like, you know, I'm good to move, but, you know, I don't mind retiring anytime soon if that happens. Fall in your lap here. So.
It's got to be some faith involved, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're moving you and your family to a whole different area, and then I can adjust because I'm gonna be around these dudes all day, every day. But then she has to find a new set of friends and people to kind of live her life while I'm coaching or whatever. You
Yep,
gotta
without a doubt.
you're stepping out on faith, and
Yes.
sometimes those moves like it ain't always the best financial move either. Sometimes you're taking a step back to take two steps forward, and you got to trust that she sees the whole vision. And I think my wife has been truly supportive of that. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, not to get too heavy, but I can't ignore what's happening in the world right now. It's made for some hard conversations with my kids, even with my wife, man. Just seeing, how far we've come as a nation, which is great, but we have so much further to go. And
right,
making those moves can be tough, man. If you're moving, there's some things that some people have to take into account that not everyone does. Like, you want to move to the right neighborhood, the right part of the country. You want to be somewhat comfortable when you move to these new places.
no doubt.
Uh,
Uh,
like the
I think you got to do some research.
Yes,
Yeah, you
yes,
gotta definitely research. Um, I don't know what your experience has been, but just kind of touching on the subject at hand. Like, I went to Nimitz High School. If you know where Nimitz is, it's right near Greens Point,
yeah.
and it's right near Acres. We had kids from Acres Home.
Hmm.
And then we had some kids from Humble. So
Hmm.
um, it was a little bit of diversity, but Booker T, it was not diverse at all. Booker T was like the Studewood Acres Home. It's
Oh yeah.
predominantly African American.
Hmm.
But then I transitioned to college at Harding University, and it's about 98% white. Like
Hmm.
you know, sometimes I think you know the world doesn't take into account the cultural differences, or how we as black men or black people have to adjust to different cultures when we get put in those situations. Like sometimes, like I go to Harding. I remember going up there and I had a big afro. I used to wear braids because I was hot back in 99, 2000,
Yeah,
2001.
I had
You
it
just
too.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember going up there wearing my platinum FUBU and my my Sean John and feeling like a fish out of water.
Yes.
To the point where like I was so uncomfortable I cut my hair just
Wow.
because, you know, it's like, man, am I ever gonna fit in this place if I don't, change something about myself? To fast forward, I got to feeling like, heck, I'm not being myself, and I grew my hair back, and I got even more natural. I went with the dreads.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day, sports is something that brings a lot of different backgrounds together and allows you to have some difficult conversations with people of different backgrounds. I can remember having conversations with friends of mine that were not black, whether they were white, Hispanic, whatever, and we're just talking about the way we were raised and why um, black people see things this way compared to the way white people see them. Like it was strange to me when people would say to me, "Man, I only had one or two black people in my town." Like that blew my mind. Coming from Houston, you know what I mean? But I know that's a reality. And sometimes, Coach Traylor, we had a big team meeting the other day, lasted about 2 hours. And Coach Traylor, before that meeting, he told us a story about him growing up in Gilmer, Texas, and him being the only white guy on the basketball team.
Yeah.
It's just those different things that we go through in life. I think we're fortunate to be involved in sports because while those things still exist, the struggle still exists within sports. I think they're more apt to kind of disappear when you're in a locker room, kind of fighting for one common cause. So,
No doubt. No, that's very well put. I tend to like we have a very similar background as far as I was in the Houston area. That's where I was born and raised. But I was born in New Waverly, Texas, a little
mhm.
small town. I mean, 800 people in the town. And my mother was the first African American administrator at the Woodlands. So
Mhm.
yeah, I went to elementary school at the Woodlands, and I looked around, and I was one of two black kids in the class.
Mhm.
And so, I was looked at, nothing major, but I was looked at differently.
No
Uh,
doubt.
Later, she moved back home, and she wanted to go be a principal in her hometown and change the academic surroundings. And so I went there, and predominantly African American. And then I'm looked at as like, why does he speak so clearly? Why is he?
Mhm.
What's wrong with him here? So you're
Mhm.
torn with that. I went to a little small. I went to Austin College in Sherman. And so same type of deal, man. It was predominantly white, and I had the afro, I had the braids, but I also had the fake gold grill. I mean,
Mhm.
I was so
Me too.
you can did you admit? And yeah, it's interesting though, because all these years later, with things happening, I have old teammates who just reach out, and we talk anyway. We
Right.
keep in touch, but it's a text saying, I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was quite like this. And
Right.
and it's opening up dialogue. And I'm like, man, you don't need to apologize. I've been black all my life. I'm just glad we're having good dialogue to try to bring our country back together instead of
No
things
doubt.
apart. Yeah.
I've struggled. I see all people putting these posts up and all that kind of stuff. I struggle with that kind of stuff because, while just like you, I'm educated, whatever. Um, Sometimes topics like this bring like a rage, like, they make me want to get out of character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I also struggle with how do I how do I help, um, or how do I aid in the cause, um, and you know I'll put it to you this way. I think as African Americans, sometimes we sh- we struggle to voice our opinions the way we really want to, for fear of professional uh, retributions, like professional consequences. And now what you're seeing, I think, is a lot of people that just say, "Screw it." Like
Yeah.
I looked at the kid from Florida State. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Marv, man. Yeah.
Big Marv, like that's I mean, if it wasn't right, you know,
Hmm.
before people speak up, and now he has a forum and feels empowered to speak up, and now it's a different type of accountability piece that we're seeing happening
Hmm.
at this moment. We had a discussion, and I give a lot of credit to Coach Traylor and how he's attacking everything that's going on. He's about action. He wants to be about action, and he's asking the questions how. Um, but he wants to make sure he says things the right way, because
Hmm.
the topics are sensitive. The people are digging into what you're saying
Big
with a
time.
fine tooth comb. And if you don't say it the right way, it could trigger some anger in some folks that's been suppressed for a long time. So
Absolutely.
it's just a very very interesting time. Like you said, great conversations. I had a friend of mine call me this morning and just kind of tell me, hey, I'm calling you about some non-football stuff. This white guy,
Uh-huh.
and just want to tell you I got your back. I said, bro, you ain't have to call me. We're like if you just call me and just talk football, I mean that tells me you got my back. Like
Hmm.
long the conversation I want you to have is with the people who talk about the people that look like me when I'm not around. Like have that
Yes.
that's how you can have my back. So,
Hmm.
but I appreciate him calling, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just, I'm just saying, like, you know, it's an interesting time.
Yes, yes,
Very
it
interesting.
is. And I get those calls, and I show them grace, because even though it's not new to me, it's apparently very new to them. This is something they had no idea what was going on, uh, because they think it's all everything's fine. It's all jokes. Everything's okay. It's
Right.
no real. Everybody has an altercation here or there. Everybody has a misunderstanding here or there, and
But
some.
why? You know what I mean? That I
What's
think
the
I think
why?
that
Yeah.
that's the why. Uh,
Uh-huh.
my wife's been getting on my case. She feels like social media is dominating my my time right now. Like I'm overly consumed with what's going on, and I kind of got into a discussion with a former coach of mine, and my question to him just consistently was, "But why are you saying this?" You know what I'm saying? Like I understand you
Yes.
may feel this way, but how does this help us move toward, you know, coming closer together, or a conversation about love or peace or whatever it may be? Like, why? And
Hmm.
if you don't even know why, you probably shouldn't be throwing, these statements out there, or bringing up conversation that could potentially divide, or draw attention to more hate and things like that. So, like you
Absolutely.
said, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, you're speaking 100% truth, man. Because there's even guys I work with, and or I have worked with in the past, and I had lunch today with I hadn't seen since before the quarantine. I hadn't seen this gentleman, and we had lunch today over some a misunderstanding of our views, and we sat down and we talked, and I mean it was one of those. I think maybe I was just happy I could sit in the restaurant again because we're opened
Yeah,
up around here now, so that might be one thing. But we just sat, ate lunch, talked, and spoke our truth. And the best part about that was that two people were listening to each other. It
right,
wasn't listening to argue. I'm listening to understand.
right, right. Crazy.
It's a crazy time, man.
I speaking of those kind of conversations, I remember, like, at Harding, I was probably known for just kind of saying things off the cuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, as soon as they came to my mind, I would say them.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine texted me. I think I posted. I don't know what I posted. Maybe I retweeted something. He looked at it. White friend of mine. He said, "Man, I remember we were sitting around and we are talking, and you said, something about me not liking black people." I'm like, really? Okay. He's like, but you know but then I made the comment, well, I got 7 black guys number in my phone, and plus, you and someone else, and you said the fact that you don't know how many black guys are in your phone, that that furthers my point. He's like, but it made me think, like, I can't use, one, why am I counting? Two, why am
Yeah.
I using this as a defense? Like, it's like, since that day, my whole perspective has changed. But it kind of goes back to what we're talking about. Like, if we never had that conversation, what kind of perspective would he have? And I
Oh man.
think, I mean, luckily we were already friends,
Hmm.
so it's okay. It was okay to have to be outright, be direct in the discussion.
Hmm.
But some people that aren't friends that are trying to have those discussions, and they're not coming off as polite, or as welcoming as that
Yes.
one.
Absolutely.
It is what it
I think,
is.
yeah, exactly right. And will be, always will be, because I think it's okay to agree to disagree, man. I'm in a situation where, and not really a situation, just a conversation I had, and it was based on Drew Brees' most recent comments. And with me, you know what? I can respect the fact that he has the right to say and feel what he has, whatever he thinks, and I also have the right to not agree with anything he says. And that doesn't
Mhm.
mean that I'm 100% right and he's 100% wrong, or vice versa. It means we agree to disagree. You'll never
Mhm.
see it the way I see it, and it's because your ears are blind, and I'll never see it the way you see it because my ears are blind. We haven't lived the same experiences, so we won't see it the same way, and we can
No
respect
doubt.
each other's opinion to not agree and be done with
I'd rather know who he is and what he stands for than,
it.
him suppress it, and be doing something different. When
Yeah, the
when I,
only outrage I had was the fact that he apologized for it. I mean, say what you say, man, and stand by it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's a big thing for me. But I agree, man. Much rather know who you are than have to guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with
All right, and, I'm gonna change gears. This is the last part of it, man. I just there hadn't been much sports on at all, and my son, my 14-year-old, he is so he loves basketball, man, to the point where he found NBA TV and he watched every old finals. He's like, Dad, I just watched Kobe in his prime against the Celtics. He's like, Dad, I just watched the old when LeBron came back from 3-1. Then he just watched them all on the road for days. I had to be like, man, turn it off. Then The Last Dance came on, and we
you.
sat down as a family, and I relived my childhood, growing up in New Waverly, Texas, with 19 channels on our cable box, and one of them was WGN, and I got to see Michael Jordan live. and that changed my whole life. But I think one of the biggest things for me, man, was watching the coaching aspect of Phil Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
managing all of those different personalities, and I like there's so many lessons. Coaching a superstar, coaching a wild card, coaching the guy who's underappreciated and doesn't necessarily have all the confidence in himself, coaching under the supervision of not so great leadership. Like those are all things that coaches have to go through, and he handled it beautifully. But were there any takeaways you got from the last stand?
I Phil was magnificent, to be honest with you. You know, I think the championship teams are all going to have those type of personalities. And if you don't, I get it. Like old school coaches, you know, they want it one way and only one way. And if it ain't this way, my dad used to say, "It's my way or the highway." You know, I don't know if you can always manage talented guys just one way. Now you can be fair with all of them, but fair to one ain't the same as fair to the other. You know, or you know, the way you coach one and get the best out of them, it can't be the same across the board. I just love that part of it, like you were saying. Obviously, you know, Michael Jordan and his greatness. You know what I mean? Like the way he challenges guys. I think the big takeaway is nothing. You know, one of the big takeaways for me was nothing I ever asked these dudes to do or demanded of them, I wasn't doing myself. So, you know, to see him, you know, leading the sprints or, you know, whatever it is that we were going through. And he had to make some sacrifices for the team as well. You know, when you look at Dennis Rodman going to Vegas, you know, for a weekend, and then the team having to get in shape. It wasn't like Michael said, I'm going to sit up. Michael's like, go, Dennis, you know, out. And then he had to go get him. And then basically he had to do the equivalent of what the kids would call punishment when he got back to get him in shape. You know, to me, that you're making a sacrifice, even though you're being demanding on the rest of those teammates. You know, obviously there's some things that Mike did that people would say was wasn't right or whatever, but I guarantee you that happens on every championship. If I told you some of the stories about the championship season of that Hail Mary, like I could write a book. You know what I mean? Like every team got those kind of issues, and I guess when your leadership is great and they understand how to manage and support the coaches, and then allow them to go and manage and support the players and have a great understanding of the personalities. I think the biggest takeaway is none of the managing, so to speak, happens without great relationships. You know, whether it's with, you might not like Mike or the things that he, the way he went about things, but I think those guys respected Mike because they knew the way he grinded. I think Phil is a weird guy, a Zen master, whatever, but man, it's hard to overlook his greatness with the cast that he had to bring together to win not just one championship but 6 of them things.
So, yeah, think about that. 6-0 in the 90s. I mean, that's unbelievable. Yeah.
I thought it was a beautiful piece. I thought it was beautiful.
So well done. So well done, man. I know one thing for me, just me and Mike, I was like, okay, we might be the same type of psycho because I used to make up stuff in my head all the time to make myself motivated. Yeah. So good game. You told me good game, and all of a sudden it's he think he got me. So I think that has worn off on my kids too. That's the way they approach it too. I'm like,
I would tell my receivers, man. I would say, man, you need to be competing against guys when they don't even know you're competing against them. Still they win, like I think Michael was the epitome of that. Like, okay, yeah, I see you. And dudes didn't even know, why he was going at him. That was crazy.
I also like the fact that after he got you a couple of times, he would remind you wherever you were. So Patrick, you're walking backstage. You're like, you remember? He's like, nah, don't start that, Mike.
That's pretty good.
Greatness. It's greatness.
Yeah.
Well, man, Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with me, man. It's always good to connect with a man I respect so much, brother, because all the things you've done and continue to do are just amazing. So One thing that I've been doing, this is season 1 of the 30 for 30. So I've never done anything like this before. I'm not tech savvy. But what I'm doing is allowing each guest to name their 30 for 30. So if there's a mission statement, if there's one thing that you live by, and it was your 30 for 30, Joe Price, what would be the tagline for
it? The quote that stands out in my mind is from my grandmother. And it's not grammatically correct. It's plan your work your plan. Like, yeah, I know people have spin-offs on that. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But my grandmother, she's from Silsbee, Texas, and she had, country lady. She was a cafeteria cook for, most of her life. Plan your work your plan. That's kind of what I live by. Have some goals in mind, and then figure out how to work your way to achieving all the things that you want to achieve. And it don't happen overnight. You know what I mean? So plan your work your plan.
Man, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Coach, man, I appreciate this, and you bless us with it. If anybody wants to follow you on Twitter, I know you probably are getting inundated with huddle links, but if anybody just wants to follow you for the good content you post, go ahead and shout your Twitter out.
Send the huddle links too. I need all the help I can get here in this state. But my Twitter is Coach JP3. Simple as that.
All right, thank you. This is another episode, and we hope to reconnect soon, Coach.